All right, what's going on, guys? My name is Alex, and I asked you guys for some hot takes, so let's get right into it. These are hot takes based off the start of the season so far. We're about 7 or 8 games at this point, so we can have some discussions about some stuff, but definitely there's going to be some hot takes in here that are maybe jumping the gun a little bit or a little bit of overreactions. But that's fine because that's what makes a hot take even hotter. So let's go right into it. The first person we got is a friend over at Belly Up Sports. I am a part of Belly Up Sports. Belly Up Sports has a bunch of writers. They have different podcasts. I personally have my own podcast over there. You can watch my podcast in the link in the description. It will send you over to my other YouTube channel where I have been posting my podcast. But he writes, my hot take is that I was right about Utah. I wrote an article about how they traded away the stars, but would still be pretty good, and they have been answering the bell so far. I got them making the playoffs. So that last part, I definitely want to dig into, but I will say I was definitely wrong about the Jazz. I did not think that the Jazz were going to be, as great as they are so far. I think currently right now they're at like an 8-3 record at the time that I'm recording this. And, if you ask me, I didn't think they're going to be that good at all. I did think they did have some good players, but I figured those good players would get traded since the Jazz are trying to lose games, or at least that's what we were under the assumption of. But in terms of the Jazz making the playoffs, I made a list of teams from like 1 to 8 that I thought were definitely playoff locks, and the Jazz weren't included on that list. I have the Suns, Grizzlies, Nuggets, Warriors, Clippers, Pelicans, Timberwolves, and Mavericks. And then you have 4 teams that are going to be fighting for the last 2 play-in spots. And you have the Jazz. I think the Blazers are in that conversation. You also got the Lakers and the Sacramento Kings. And then after that, I think those are the only arguments you can make for 4 teams to make those last 2 play-in spots. And even at that point, I think you can definitely make an argument that the Jazz are worthy of one of those play-in spots. But again, they're going to have to be playing teams like the Timberwolves or the Pelicans or the Mavs or even the Clippers, depending on how they, end up, since they are having a pretty injury-riddled season so far. So they could potentially be that 8 seed. And if you ask me, at least if the Clippers are healthy, they're going to beat the Jazz. I think the Timberwolves can beat the Jazz as well. We may also see the Jazz look completely different by the time we get to playoff time because, again, they still have Conley and Jordan Clarkson, so those guys may end up being traded. So even though I am very surprised that the Jazz have been doing well, I do not think, even if they keep this success, I do not think that they'll be able to make the playoffs, simply because even if they make the play-in, I don't think they'll beat the teams to be able to make it into the playoffs. So now I got a bunch of hot takes from my best friend Hamza. We're just going to kind of roll through these. Some of them are quick, and the first one that he brought up was the Nuggets are a first-round exit. So for those of you who do not know, I'm a Nuggets fan. I do like the Nuggets. Jokic is my favorite player. And if you ask me, I don't think that this is the case at all. I know obviously they're still concerned about Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr., how they're going to hold up throughout the entire season. But if you ask me, I think even despite that, Jokic is going to do Jokic things. He was able to carry this team even without them. So when you add them, I don't think they'll necessarily subtract to what they do. I think they can only add. So even at their worst, I think the Nuggets will end the season around the 4th seed. So again, unless they're facing the Clippers in the first round, I think that one could be potentially close. But I think they'll definitely beat the Timberwolves. I think the Pelicans defense is really bad. I don't think they're going to be able to guard the Nuggets. The Mavs, I don't think so. I don't think they have enough to conquer the Nuggets as well. So, I just don't think that any of those teams are going to beat the Nuggets. So, just off of that, I think the Nuggets make it out of the first round. Honestly, to me, you may think I'm a little bit biased for this, but I definitely think the Nuggets can make the conference finals. But a lot of that does have to do with Jamal Murray's health. Michael Porter Jr. has looked really good since he's came back, but Murray has been a little bit on and off. He seems to be getting better every single game, but again, you always worry that maybe something happens, something aggravates his injury, and he just isn't the same, or at least not fully healthy once we get to playoff time. But I think they could definitely make it to the conference finals. I think the only team that I think you can make an absolute argument that the Nuggets cannot beat is the Warriors. And to me, it's just because the Warriors have the pieces to be able to take advantage of Jokic's and just the Nuggets in general, their entire defensive schemes. Like they just don't match up well against the Warriors at all. So I think the Warriors are the only team who can really beat the Nuggets. Everyone else, either the Nuggets are beating pretty handily or it's going to be a very close series and it could go either way. And at that point, I'm not going to make arguments, but to me, you can't make an argument for about 3 teams that are going to be in that 5 to 8 range. So the Pelicans, Timberwolves, Mavs. I think the Nuggets can beat them, but Clippers. Again, it's all about health. But if you ask me, I feel a little bit more comfortable picking the Nuggets over the Clippers simply because I don't know how the health of the Clippers is going to be. I think that's a little bit more unknown than the Nuggets situation. We have another one from my friend, and he says the Cavs will be an Eastern Conference Finals team. Now, I actually kind of agree with this. Joel Embiid has been playing like good, but not at his best. Tyrese Maxey has been really good, but the Sixers overall have been pretty disappointing. The Celtics are also, a very solid team. They've had some ups and downs, but I'm not really too worried about them. They have a super deep team. They got the superstar in Jason Tatum. I think they'll be fine. The Nets are a complete mess. I've already talked about them enough. I don't need to talk about them anymore. But really, that's really all the teams that I think could really compete against the Cavs and make it close. So, just based off of that, I would feel more comfortable picking the Cavs to make the conference finals. Now, if they face the Celtics in the second round and whoever wins that series goes against the Bucks, I think I could definitely be a little bit scared for the Cavs. The Celtics obviously have the championship pedigree at this point, and they can definitely win that series based off experience alone. The Cavs are still a very inexperienced team, not a lot of playoff runs with that team. So I think I would personally pick the Celtics over the Cavs, but as long as they don't face the Celtics, I think they can definitely make the conference finals. Not saying they're going to win, because if you ask me, I think the Bucks are making it out of the East, but I think it's definitely possible for the Cavs to make it to the conference finals as long as they don't face the Celtics. And we got another one here from Hamza, and he is talking about the Clippers. We've talked about the Clippers a lot today, but this is the first time it's actually directed at them. He's got the Clippers are getting eliminated in the second round. I don't really have too strong of a take about this, just because, again, I don't know what the Clippers are going to look like by the time we get to playoff time, but I do not think they're going to be in that top 4 seed. So at best they can be the 5th seed. And again, if I think the Nuggets are going to be that 4th seed, I think the Nuggets are going to beat them. Call me biased if you want, but honestly, I think he's the same person that said the Nuggets aren't going to make it out the first round. So I think he's kind of predicting maybe a Nuggets Clippers series in the first round, and he's just taking the Clippers on that. If you want to do that, that's fine. I just don't trust what's happening in LA and the Clippers, especially with Kawhi. If you check out a recent video about my top 5 surprises, Kawhi barely playing so far, even though he's been out for way more than a year, and he's still not playing. He's missed like 6 or 7 straight games. No, definitely not 7 or 8. It's like 4 or 5 or something like that. I don't know. He's missed a lot of games. It's very concerning. So I personally don't feel very strong about the Clippers. They could definitely, get bounced out of the first round, but the West is super top heavy. So even if you don't make those top 4 seeds, like, it's going to be really hard to get out of the first round. So if they do end up getting out, they're going to be playing a pretty good team. So if they do that, it's going to be very impressive. Another Utah Jazz related hot take, and we got Lauri Markkanen is going to make an all-star team. So again, I made a list of, potential Western Conference all-stars that we could see in the all-star game. And keep in mind that the starters, you vote for 3 front court players, and then the bench also gets 3 front court. But then there's 2 wild cards. So to me, there's some pretty set, front court players. You have Jokic, LeBron, and AD. I think those guys will probably end up starting, despite, the Lakers maybe not winning that many games. I think as long as they're able to stay healthy, I think they will get voted in. And then you have Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns, and Paul George. I think those are some other guys that can definitely be solidified players on the All-Star team. And then you have a good amount of players who I think are eligible for some sort of wild card spot. And I'm not necessarily saying that these guys are going to be in these spots, but these are just names that have kind of come up. And the first one that I wanted to say was Luka. Now, Luka, in my opinion, should be listed as a guard, but for some reason, the NBA loves listing, guys who could play that forward position. You can vote for them as a forward, even though they really play the point guard position. So Luka could potentially take up a forward spot if the voters decide to do some stupid shit. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But even outside of that, you have Draymond and Andrew Wiggins. Now, I think Wiggins has a better shot at an all-star team than Draymond at this point. Draymond has not really played all that great, and Wiggins has actually played really well. He's played even better from last season, and he was an all-star last season. So if you ask me, I think he's definitely in that consideration for an all-star as well. Then Lauri Markkanen is obviously a person you can have as a wild card. Domantas Sabonis. Now, again, this all kind of depends on if the Kings win enough games, but he's a 16, 10, and 6 sort of guy. He was an all-star previously, so he is also in this discussion. And then one person that I haven't said yet, Zion Williamson. Again, if he can stay healthy, I think he's definitely going to make an all-star team. He was already an all-star, but the year before he was out. So he could definitely make it again. He's got the potential. The Pelicans, I think, are going to be a surprise team. They'll be winning enough games. He's going to be putting up the stats as usual. So I think he can make it. And even Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram is another guy who I think can make it as well. So now, I don't think Lauri Markkanen will make it. I think there's just better players. But the fact that we're having this conversation just shows how improved Lauri Markkanen is at this point. I think you can definitely say that he'd make a Most Improved Player award winner for sure. He could definitely do that. But All-Star, I'm not too sure yet. I would have to see a little bit more. And if the Jazz just keep winning games, then I think it might just get to the point where it's undeniable. These last two are going to go really, really quick. We have last year was Chris Paul's last good season. Now this one is, kind of weird because what do you define as good? If you ask me, Chris Paul isn't really playing too well up to this point. He's averaging 10 points, 10 assists, almost 2 steals a game, but the efficiency isn't really there. He's shooting 36% from the field, 27 from 3. If you ask me, I don't think those shooting splits kind of stay the same. I think those will improve over time. But if he's putting up 10 and 10 on decent efficiency, I would still count that as good. Obviously, he's very old. He's going to be aging. So I don't like to do oh, he's good for this age, right? But if you're putting up 10 points, 10 assists, and you're still an okay defender with some decent efficiency, I would still say that's good. But if we're just talking about good in terms of Chris Paul standards, yeah, no, he's out of his prime. He's definitely on the back end of it, and it's getting really close. But if he can improve that efficiency, I think you could definitely say he's good. If you're just talking about right now, no, he is not good just because of how bad he's shooting the ball. But he's still 10 assists. He's a great playmaker. So I think it just depends on how you define good. And then the last one for my friend, he's got, by the end of the season, LeBron will come off the bench. And he specifies that it's not for management reasons or load management reasons. He's just not going to be good anymore. No, it won't happen. If you just think about how the Lakers are constructed right now, who are you replacing LeBron with? Juan Toscano Anderson? No, that's not happening. Troy Brown Jr.? No, it's not happening. So when you look at Westbrook and how he got benched, they have guards who can take his spot. Not saying they're better than Westbrook, but they're a lot better alternatives than if you were to put LeBron on the bench. Now you got to put JTA on the court. That's just JTA really shouldn't be getting any minutes, but the Lakers are just so desperate for any sort of help that he does end up getting minutes. So I don't think LeBron is going to be off the bench just because he's not going to be good anymore. I think you can definitely have a conversation at this point that he's definitely out of the top 10 just based off how we started the season so far. But no, I don't think he's going to be coming off the bench this season. I think we still got a year or two left until maybe that potentially happens. Getting close to the end, we got 2 more, but before we get to the very last one, we got one from my TikTok, and we got Westbrook has a chance to win the 6th Man of the Year award. So he has been coming off the bench, and he's been playing extremely great. When he was a starter, it was awful efficiency, 10 points a game. But now, coming off the bench, he's around 18 points. Really good efficiency, better than his entire career. So if you ask me, I don't think that's going to be sustainable in terms of his efficiency. But in terms of that scoring, I think that could definitely stay the same. And when you just think about some of the candidates that could be, potentially had by the end of the season, I think you got to look at Jordan Poole, you got to look at Christian Wood, Malcolm Brogdon, and surprisingly, I think you guys got to look at Benedict Mathurin for the Pacers. This guy's averaging 20 points off the bench right now as a rookie, and if you just look at the history of the 6th Man of the Year award, it's about scoring the ball, and currently right now, he's scoring the most out of those players that I listed, so I think it's definitely, a shot for him to win it as well. Now, if you ask me who I think is going to win, I think it's too early to tell. Westbrook should definitely be in this conversation. Will he win? I'm not sure because he will put up the stats, I believe, but he's got to keep some sort of, decent efficiency, and the Lakers got to win more games. I think if we start looking at teams like the Warriors with Jordan Poole, I think, if the stats are similar, you got to go based off the win total. And whether you think that's correct or not, I think that's kind of what the voters are going to do. They're going to look at the wins, and they're going to see that maybe Jordan Poole and the Warriors have more wins than the Lakers and Westbrook. So they'll just go with Jordan Poole. So I think that's something you have to consider. So do I think Westbrook is going to win it? Probably not, but he's definitely in the conversation so far. And for our last hot take, we got this one from YouTube. Shout out to Tawan Dixon. And he says Paulo could be a top 10 player. Well, actually, he doesn't say player. He just says top 10 by the end of the season. So I'm going to assume that he means player. I don't know what else it could be. Maybe power forward. I'm not sure, but let's just assume he's talking about, in the league right now. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's too soon. He's been really great. He's around that, 20 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, pretty decent efficiency for a rookie. Not the greatest, but good for a rookie. But when you just look at the players who are in the top 10, like people who are just borderline, like you got to look at like John Morant, Trae Young. Those guys are just better than Paulo. So I don't really think it's a conversation for Paulo to be a top 10 player in the league. But maybe, if you're thinking about power forwards, I think you can definitely make the argument. Shout out to everyone who gave me a hot take. That was really fun. Let me know what y'all think down below. Do you agree with some of the hot takes? Do you agree what I had to say about those hot takes? If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you guys like and subscribe. I'm trying to reach 100 subs by the end of the year, so it'd be really appreciated if you sub. If you enjoyed what you watched, make sure you guys go to the Linktree link below and you can watch other content that I make over on TikTok. I'm also on Twitter, and I got my podcast channel on the Beyond Half Court Podcast YouTube channel, so you should definitely go check that out. And you can watch this video where I discuss whether Steve Nash was a good head coach or not. See you on the next one. Peace out.